Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe, from the movies, TV, and here we go. From comics, TV, and movies, we will go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Null Time Zone in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the Uncanny Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance, assemble. This is twice in 3 days. What could possibly bring us together with guests, Brent?
It's a hell of a week. It is such a good week.
Well, yes, we are back. For those of you that were listening, you're going to see this drop in your feeds. Not like we're prepared. A little movie. Marvel movies are back. And we got a movie. We got Black Widow that came out. I know you and I saw it Thursday. I know some of our panel saw it Thursday night. Some people were seeing it for the first time on Friday. So yeah, we've got an illustrious panel. But before we introduce our lovely panel, we're going to get those network plugs out of the way. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We've got 9 shows coming at you 7 days a week. We got World's Finest True Believers and Ranger Alliance going bi-weekly. We've got DC Alliance. And I'm always going to mess this up. Superhero discussions, Marvel Alliance, and then Weird Science, DC, and Marvel Comics Roundup. I'm feeling I'm missing one. Star Wars Alliance and Slice of Film. There we go. It's been a long day. And so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we do have a Patreon. So if you want to join that, we appreciate our patrons that are on it right now. We got 2 tiers, $1 to our tip jar. We appreciate that. And then the $5 tier, where we've got the early access episodes, ad-free episodes, and exclusive Patreon episodes. So we hope you're enjoying that content. And if you can't join us on Patreon, we understand. If you can rate and review us on, we have 2 feeds you can rate and review us on. Our priority feed is the our solo feed, Marvel Alliance solo feed. So you can find that on a podcatcher. Or if you love all the content on the GUA network, rate and review the GUA network on Apple Podcast or whatever podcatcher of choice may be. And this is a big day, but we've got to bring up our sponsor, organicpricebooks.com, for all your Omni needs, all your hardcover needs. JP and the crew over at the OPB definitely getting some great books at you. And so this a couple days ago, we announced that JP was going to be helping us out, doing a giveaway for us, Brent.
This giveaway is absolutely insane. I'm still blown away when you told me about this.
If you just happened to listen tonight, yes, this past week, a couple days ago, we talked about it. I went to JP and said, "Hey, we got this big review coming up. Is there anything you might be able to throw away?" And he said, "I think I can hook you up. I'll do 2 books." And blown away by that. So again, the first book for the giveaway, and again, we will tell you in a second what you need to do in order to be entered for this. Timely. Black Widow Strikes, the omnibus that just came out a little bit ago, collecting all her early adventures at that point. So you can kind of see there if you're looking at the live feed, or go to Organic Rice Books and look up Black Widow there. And off-brand, but on-brand with our one of our panelists, Katie, on there. Star Wars Legends of the Old Republic omnibus. This just came out this week, collecting the entire Dark Horse run 1 through 50. And Knights of the Old Republic War 1 through 5, and the Knights of the Old Republic Handbook. So both of these are going to be given away. And we've got another thing for international listeners. We're going to, 2 people can win. If one of you, this is only going to be for one. If you are an international listener and win this, you will receive a $100 gift card to organicpricebooks.com. The reason for that is shipping these books a little more pricey internationally, but we did not want to forget our international listeners. So, Brent, tell the listeners what they have to do, or those who are watching on YouTube, what do they have to do in order to be entered into this contest?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Do what we've already asked you to. Rate and review the show. Find the solo podcast feed, search Marvel Alliance, leave the rating, leave the review, and take a screenshot of it and DM it to either the show account or Chris or myself. Our DMs are open, so it's okay if we're not already following you. Go ahead and send them our way. That way we can collect all those and enter you in for it.
Yes. And if you haven't checked out Organic Price Books, again, check them out. If you use the code at checkout, Marvel GUA, you get $2 off every single order. So again, check out organicpricebooks.com. We appreciate you, JP. We really do. Thank you for this giveaway. We're going to run this, I think, for about a week at that point, and then find our 2 winners. Again, the reason we need you to DM us your review when it posts on your podcatcher choice is that it helps us kind of get in contact with you if you end up being the winner. So we'll do a random number generator as they come in.
Especially because screen names in like iTunes or Apple Podcasts are not always the same as Twitter. So we need that way to validate. Like it helps us validate you are who you claim to be.
Yes, exactly. And again, if you are on Twitter, I get that. Email us at Marvel Alliance Podcast. Make sure I get that right because I check it only so often. Yes, Marvel Alliance Podcast at gmail.com. So make sure if you do not do Twitter, email it and we will be there. So those are all the plugs. Reminder, we're going to be back to our normal time next week, Brent. We'll be back to our normal time Thursday night, going live and then dropping in the feeds on Friday. So this has been a fun 2 weeks.
It has been. But back to normal is a good thing.
Back to normal. So our panel this week, we announced y'all on a couple days ago, or at least if you just listened on Friday, our panel. So we're going to go from where I'm looking at the screen. So our first panelist, it feels like Hollywood Squares, our first panelist here. Our first reviewer, the co-host of Ranger Alliance and DC Alliance, Clay. Say hi to everyone.
Hello. Hi. I just want to say I finally did it. I am now officially the one person that has been on every show in the GUA. Other than Travis. I believe Travis was on a Comics Corner with or a roundup with Jim in the very beginning of his show. Mm-hmm. So me and Travis are the 2 that have been on every single show.
Was Travis on one of the Power Ranger ones?
Exactly. He's done.
He hasn't. Oh, snap.
Yep.
Don't let him take
this done yet.
Yeah.
No, I was this close. This close.
Yes.
Congratulations.
I'm so glad.
Clay.
Yes.
Now, do you feel like Thanos? You've collected all the stones. Do you feel that power going through you?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
We already know what you're going to do with those stones if you had the power, so we won't go into that right now. That's a rabbit hole we won't go down. And our next panelist, Tony, another co-host of Ranger Alliance. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Anytime. Unfortunately, unlike Clay, I've only been on all but 2 of the shows. Katie's is the only one I have not been on.
Which I think those are mine.
Yeah. The only 2. Been on DC, Chris, now Marvel, Rangers, of course.
Yeah. It'll be time. It'll happen. It'll happen.
You just got to pick a movie and then come on for Star Wars. I'm always open.
That's true.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then another co-host of Ranger Alliance, Joe.
Howdy, y'alls. I'm 1 away. Just gotta get the Weekender with Jim, which is never gonna happen. But it's fine.
I think the only reason I might get a default on Jim is because he came on World's Finest.
Correct.
And that may be the closest it comes.
Exactly. But I mean, it's all good. I'm not bitter at all.
Much. And finally, our next and final panelist, Katie, co-host of host of Slice of Film and co-host of Star Wars Alliance.
Yes, very excited for the episodes we put out this past week. But yeah, thanks for having me, y'all. I know my opinion is probably not something y'all want on a Marvel Alliance podcast, but I'm happy here.
We do not want an echo chamber. We want to value all opinions at that point. And you claimed for hot takes. I know some people on this panel are looking forward to hearing and possible rebuttaling hot takes. So, but no, we do not want an echo chamber. We definitely don't want that. So, all right, everyone. We're going to start off with non-spoiler thoughts first, and then we'll do an ad break, and then we'll get into all the spoilers. So, because we know, again, some people may be just wanting to see it this weekend and then tuning in, but non-spoiler thoughts. I'm going to toss it to you first, Brent, at that point, and then we'll just kind of go down the line.
All right, I got to get one thing out of the way. I think we all agree this movie should have come out years ago. Yeah. To be fair, there was zero chance it was ever coming out in the first 2 phases. another time we can talk about why, but there were out of story reasons why there was no chance that was going to happen. But it still could have come out sometime during phase 3. We would have all loved to have seen that, but let's be honest, that's not really a criticism of the film we watched. So I feel like we just need to remember that. That said, there are valid criticisms, I think, to have of this movie. I'm sure this is going to surprise people, but I've got a few of them. And ultimately, I thought this movie was great. I loved it. It had so much heart to it. And I thought they really nailed that. But in the same way they nailed that, they kind of were lacking in a few other areas. And so ultimately, I still haven't firmly settled on where I'm going to rank it. But in general, I think it's a great return to the movies. If you haven't been to the movies at all in the last year and a half, I think it's a great return for Marvel to the movies because it's been 2 years at this point. Actually, a little bit over 2 years. Yeah, we've had the TV shows. The movies are back now too. And as much as I love the TV shows, the movies still feel like the main event right now. And so I think Scarlett Johansson and the whole cast did a bang up job. They did a great job. This movie deserved to have been seen a year and a half ago. It deserved to have been seen 4 years ago. I'm glad I got to see it this weekend.
Gotcha. Clay.
I will say everything that Brent just said. One criticism that has been yelled out into the void on Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want to, your social media of choice is, why does this film matter? That whole debate, oh, it's about a character that is technically dead, quote unquote, non-spoilers, because that's a movie that's 2 to 3 years old now. So I will say this, for me personally, didn't even think about it until literally the last 5 minutes in that aspect. Mm-hmm. So it did really well with getting me engaged into the film. So I do appreciate that. I enjoyed most of the performances. I do have some nitpicks that we will definitely get into. And I do have a little bit of a hot take for one character in particular. So I can't wait to talk about that one.
All right. Tony, what did you feel?
Definitely exceed my expectations. Go movie, I was like, because even just in the comics in general, like I really don't care less about Black Widow for some reason. I just don't care. But as the movie got on, I slowly got interested in the movie. During like a third of the movie, once they got done or so, it picked the pace a little bit. It dragged on in the beginning, but then at one point, that's when I was hooked onto it. Enjoyed the whole characters that we saw. Some things that I wish they stuck with the comics by understand why they did not for the story purposes. Which later on, when we get into the characters, we'll find out why I didn't really like that twist per se. But definitely a film that I actually will go and watch on Disney Plus, just because, like, again, it picked up by a lot, especially towards the tail half of it.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, this is one I had fun with it, fun going in and watching it, and like Clay, I also it being a quote unquote prequel taking place whenever it didn't bother me, mainly because I am currently in the middle of my MCU rewatch and I'm watching them chronologically, and I'm at the point now where I'm in between Civil War and Infinity War. I think I actually watched Doctor Strange before yesterday, before I went and saw Black Widow, because again, I wasn't entirely sure where Black Widow was going to sit. So I was just like, okay, well, I'll pick it here. Who cares? Whatever. We do have the movie does give you a firm time frame when it happens. We'll get into spoilers about that where it takes place in the spoiler section. But all in all, like I had a blast with it. The characters were great. I thought everybody did a really good job, and I walked out of there and enjoying it. I like everybody else, I've got some criticisms. Yet no movie is perfect, so I had a blast. With the exception of going to the movies and realizing why I am okay not going to the movies again, or at least going to a point where there's not many people.
before we get to Katie, I wanted to ask since the beginning. I just remembered it. How many people here saw it at least once in the theaters?
Me.
All right, so
Yeah.
that's everyone. Clay, you did not, I believe, at that point.
Correct. I have only seen it on Premiere Access, which was at 2 a.m. my time. So
Gotcha. I did my second rewatch on Premiere Access at 5 a.m. So I feel a little bit of your pain. All right,
I was
cool.
watching
So
Bad Batch.
that'll be
you
happening
mean-
tomorrow.
wait a
That's fair. That's fair.
That's fair. Yes,
I
exactly.
already told you my thoughts on that one. Katie.
All right, Katie. Do we get to start the hot takes in the non-spoiler, or do we have to wait to the spoilers?
Hey, maybe this is a hot take. Maybe it's not.
Okay, go for it.
So the film is actually sitting up in the top of my MCU rankings right now. I thought we got a lot of good stuff from the director.
Wow.
I thought Kate Shortland did a really incredible job. Definitely top 10. I still haven't decided exactly where it's going to go, but I really appreciated the director being able to take a little bit of vision with her because this shows promise in the terms of not being your typical MCU flair. It does get those parts in it where it kind of flows back into the typical MCU script. But I really liked what I saw of Kate Shortland, and I actually want to do a lot more research into her films and kind of get some glimpses into what she can do as a director. However, I will say that I'm sad Scarlett Johansson, Natasha Romanoff, plays once again second fiddle in her solo movie. So
I could see that.
I can see
Okay. I would say yes. You definitely got a hot take because you're probably one of the first people to say one of their favorites in their top 10. So that's awesome. I definitely want to dig into that.
I figured
So-
that would be like a nicety to throw out there first.
That's
But then also finishing.
no, it is definitely fair. I tried, and I mentioned this a couple days ago when we recorded Marvel Alliance, that I am like many others that are big fans of the Marvel and MCU. Again, I've gone on record. I'm also DC. I love comic books and comic book movies in general. I've tried to do what I could to separate my excitement for just seeing a Marvel movie in the theaters from my expectations for the film, knowing exactly that how much and how unfortunate it was that how much has already come out about this movie due to we might see it in a month, we might see it in 3 months, oh, we might do this. So going into it, I tried to set my expectations very, very low, not thinking it was going to be awful, just like doing it like that. And I was very pleasantly surprised at a lot of you all had mentioned the characters in it for the most part. This is not taking anything away. Florence Pugh stole the show, in my opinion. Very, very much so. And I look forward to seeing more of her character. I think you said saying something that Natasha plays second fiddle a little bit. I can see that in the scenes, but what I enjoyed most about this is some of the themes that they really delved into and the homage to one of my favorite series of all time, movie theaters of all time, that they make a huge homage to. And this whole movie is basically probably a little bit of tip of the hat to is James Bond, you know, in a very big way.
But definitely, I've got that in my spoiler review. Like
Yep.
the first 30 minutes feels exactly like a setup for a James Bond film.
Yep.
So
But it's definitely, you know, I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. Like everyone here, I've got some nitpicks. I've got some some very interesting questions at that point. But it is definitely, I would say, even though we're not doing rankings at the end, this is not in my bottom tier. I don't think it ranks there, but it's definitely not in my top. But I enjoyed it. I definitely will be seeing this. I'm seeing this again this weekend when my wife comes back into town to watch it on Sunday Premiere Access. But yeah, I think it was good. It wasn't the best MCU movie, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen out of the MCU. And even the worst thing out of the MCU is still better than most. So, but all right, any non-spoiler takes before we take our first ad break and get into what everyone's chomping at the bit for, talking about the movie proper?
I'll mention something about the prequel stuff. In general, I know there's a lot of people, Snell, who are like, "Oh, I don't like prequels. Prequels are dumb. We already know where they're going." My thing about that is, if we don't get prequels, there's a whole lot of time in every single franchise that we all love that we miss out on. It's like, I don't want to invalidate the idea of a prequel just because I know the end result, you know? And so, yeah, we all know that Natasha dies. We like, spoiler for, you know, a movie that came out 2 years ago. Natasha died in
the
Avengers
Russos have
Endgame.
said the Russos have said the timeline has more than gone on that one to start talking spoilers.
That's true. That's true. And the thing about it is, it's like this exact time frame between Civil War and Infinity War, I wanted a movie in that time. I wanted to know more. I don't ever expect it, but I'd love to know what Captain America was doing during this time. I would love to see another prequel and stuff like that. There are other times that I want to see in the MCU and other franchises, Star Wars, DC, all that stuff. But there is one thing about this being a prequel that does bug me, and that is, with the exception of Birds of Prey, we can't get a female-led movie from one of these big franchises set in the present day. I'm like, I want one of them to move the ball forward. Birds of Prey did it, but we all know DC is a little loose with their continuity, but at least it was in the present day, you know, like it wasn't before her first appearance.
I guess we'll see them with the Marvels.
Exactly. Yeah. that's what I was gonna
Presumably
say.
with the Marvels, maybe even Ms. Marvel will, you know, which will beat it to it. But I want one of these movies to be Wonder Woman 84, both in the past, Captain Marvel in the past. Give me something in the present day. I'll put an asterisk next to Ant-Man and the Wasp, I guess.
And to your point, I'll chime in with that one before we head to our first ad break. Is you're right. I think that's the thing. I enjoy seeing, okay, where did they get to? Where all the stuff we didn't talk about? Like one of my favorite series, and you know, Katie, I will highly recommend it. It's in your alley books, Star Wars. They, you know, Star Wars by Jason Aaron, Star Wars by Kieran Gillen, you know, putting everything in between New Hope and Empire. They're right now doing Empire between Jedi. You know, those are cool now canonical stories that I just want to see what adventures they take. Whether I already know what's going on or not, I enjoy seeing more of that. So, but anyways, before we go down a new rabbit hole, we're going to take our first ad break. So listeners, you know that these ads keep the lights on of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So we're going to give you a 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. So I know we've got some show notes. I know the show notes are doing that, but it's just a guide of necessarily ideas, things like that. So I'm going to toss it first to Katie to talk about maybe her, we'll talk about kind of favorites, whether it be scenes, sequences, characters, like start us off.
So I really kind of enjoyed every character we got in this. I thought Florence Pugh, very phenomenal. Like, I can't wait to see what she does in the future. Like, I was laughing hysterically every time she was on screen, but she was also very poignant in what she was doing. Like, it was clear actions. Like, this is probably the funniest movie since Thor Ragnarok that actually feels like the humor fits in where in what everything's going on. I thought David Harbour as Alexei, oh my gosh, like, again, I thought he fit like this silly, like, strong man who doesn't know what he's doing at all. Like, I thought he fit perfectly. I'm sad probably won't get to see him in future stuff because I think he's a phenomenal actor and he could have done a really great job being a big part of the MCU. Always love seeing Rachel Weisz on screen. I felt like she could have done a little bit better with her character, but I'm again
And her
like
accent.
the accent was trash. A lot of the accents were trash. Let's just be real about that, okay?
I don't know. I thought Florence Pugh did a wonderful job with her. Is like she don't what do you know? I thought she did great.
I feel bad for the Russians who are watching this and are going, "That's not how I
They hate
sound."
this anyways, so all right.
but there's a lot of good stuff going on, and like I said, I really liked what Kate Shortland put into it as a director, and putting her flair on it. So, yeah.
Clay, you're shaking your head, so I'm going to go to you at that point.
Oh boy.
Ooh.
So I hated everybody's accent in this movie. Other than, of course, Scarlett Jo, just because we have seen several times just the same way as we saw oh my gosh, Scarlet Witch, freaking Elizabeth Olsen,
Mhm.
talk about how, hey, time outside of this makes that accent go away. So we had an excuse for her, but everything else, I guess I am like not in the same filming boat as everybody else when it comes to Florence Pugh. I found her voice, not just her accent, but her voice kind of annoying, and so that really put me off to her character. Um, I don't know if in the future her performance will get better. I'm hoping it will, because it seems like she is going to be a part of the MCU going forward. In what way? It's going to be very interesting to see. But my first hot take, I do have it written down. Alexei, with just seeing the interactions that he had immediately after the prison break.
Mhm.
Alexei, without even seeing Suicide Squad, Alexei is the better Peacemaker, 100%.
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I will go ahead and say that.
Can I defend the DC thing to the DC host?
Oh,
You need to wait to say that till you see
I-
Suicide Squad.
I do, but we have
That's all
said
I
several
got.
and we've said that a lot of these trailers are kind of out of context when showing John Cena's very douchebaggery Captain America-esque style acting. So I understand that, but I will say I loved his performance. I love the Red Guardian in this. I feel like every single scene that he was in, I was laughing. I was enjoying myself watching this movie. So he was a big part of the enjoyment for this. Again, I think everybody's going to have a criticism for Rachel, unfortunately. There was moments where I felt like she may have been a little too soft-spoken, and it was very hard to really understand what was going on. And I was so focused on her speech, that's when I noticed the slips of her accent. So I think that is why I kind of focused on her accent a little bit more than everybody else. So that's as far as that character. And then, just because it is a greater MCU with more characters that are being reintroduced to us, seeing Thunderbolt Ross again was fun. Like, even if it was for a very small amount of time, there was even a tease to, possibly his future, with something that Natasha said to him. So I'm looking forward to the future of the MCU for sure, even though I do have my quips for this movie.
Joe, what were some of your kind of favorite characters?
So I with Clay liking every time Alexei was on screen, which I definitely agree. He did a wonderful job. David Harbour did. I loved every single time Yelena made a joke. Like, for example, when she's basically chastising Natasha of like, oh, you do the superhero hair thing with your hair and the
Yes,
flip.
Posing.
It's like that was great. And then like there was another part where she's about ready to destroy the plane and like, this was fun. Bam. Like, it's just I know there's some more jokes in there and I can't remember. Again, only saw it one time and I'm trying to piece everything together from what I can remember.
Mhm.
But like, I thought Yelena did a wonderful job. I thought Florence Pugh did a good job. I am definitely looking forward to seeing her in the future, and where she will go, because I know I think Clay shared it in the group chat earlier that Feige had said no more. They're not going to do the long drawn out contracts. Everything is just basically one contract, one film, which could be bad, but also good. Like, it's good because you're tied to the one film, and I want to see her more. in the MCU longer.
I think that part of that is it's money, but also I think
Yes.
it's going to depend on where they want to see the characters go, because I think they'll do multi-contract still. It just may not be for the money. You're not going to see RDJ money and Chris Evans and Hemsworth.
Exactly.
No,
I think that's
he wasn't
point.
saying it's one movie, one deal,
Oh,
like
okay,
one movie
okay,
at a time. It was no more 6 to 9 movie deals. It's just going to depend on the character, on the project. So this person may get a 3-picture deal. That person may have a 1.
Gotcha.
That was the situation. It's situational now, which a tangent, Elizabeth Olsen was that way, like 1 or 2 at a time. And she said that actually worked to her benefit because it let her negotiate for higher prices.
Okay, fair enough.
And on the S-Bubs in the chat saying he said no more 9-picture deals. So
Okay.
Sorry,
Oh, go ahead. No, you
just
go ahead.
wanted to interject there. And I know, like, Marvel Studios has changed a lot from the first 2 phases, but that really actually benefits, like, your people of color who are getting into this industry with the MCU, as well as your female characters who don't typically make that kind of money. I know, like, a lot of the male actors now are trying to make sure that their co-stars or people that they're working with here get the same compatible money that they're getting. And in some cases I agree, in some cases I disagree, but I really do appreciate the like you said, Brent, like Elizabeth Olsen able to negotiate higher up because her character now is phenomenal. And so to see her come in future stuff, she's not going to make the same money that she made in Avengers 2. But if she'd signed that 9-picture deal, she would have. So it really works to her benefit.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought General Ross was fine. Like, I was really worried about the de-aging for William Hurt when we originally saw the trailer. That one scene, in my opinion, looked bad. In the movie, it looked fine. It was acceptable. I was okay with Taskmaster until the reveal, and then I got some that will go into my least favorite things that we'll talk about when we get there. And then the last thing was all the mention of family. And every time they mentioned family,
where is Toretto?
Dominic Toretto was going to pop up and just going to save somebody just every single time.
I know Brent was probably just
I was
thinking about it
cracking
the
up
entire
at
time.
And then there's that scene that's like a Fast and Furious scene.
Right?
Yes, I was dying.
I am waiting, and I told you this before, is that I was telling you this whole movie very obviously is going to be about family in these trailers. I'm waiting for the mashups. The mashup memes are coming. Brent's thread either is going to continue or is going to have to do like a crossover thread.
I'm going to have to learn Photoshop if these memes don't start happening.
I did see one where they did Photoshop Dom saving Natasha from falling on Volmir. So yeah. It's out there already. It's just they're gonna keep making more.
Yeah. Tony, what were some of your favorite characters?
Definitely, as everyone's saying, Elena and Lexi, my opinion, the 2 best characters on the entire movie. They blow everyone out of the water just with the lines, how they acted. The accents, they really didn't bother me that much, so I really couldn't tell. But a few things that really stuck out to me the most is definitely the intro scene with Smells Like Teen Spirit. I know that some people didn't like it, but to me, that was, yes, it felt like, as Travis said this morning at Geek First Round, like it felt like a 90s music video. Well, yeah, during that time, it took place in 1995, so sure, okay, I can let that slide. But it felt creepy as well, which I felt it matched very well with what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. I should get this creepy vibe for what Natasha's going to be going through. That plus the fight scene between Taskmaster and Natasha. The first fight scene was probably the best one in the entire movie. The action was great. The jailbreak scene was hilarious. Our intro to Alexei was just well done. Just right from the beginning, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna dig you. So I'm just gonna enjoy all the scenes that you're in.
And he did not. Did anybody catch the mutant in that scene?
Go for it.
Ursa, the guy that he broke, the arm he broke, that's supposed to be Ursa Major.
I thought it was. But I know that it was a little hoping for a little too much. I was hoping for the actual.
Well, they just called him Ursa, and he was that. I mean, obviously he didn't change into a giant bear, but yeah, that would I mean, that's another mutant, and possibly
Is it a
could be-
mutant?
I mean, Ursa Major is a mutant. They didn't
no,
name a
they
mutant in the
don't-
movie, but I know that's.
I mean,
I'm reaching here, Brent. Okay, I'm reaching.
I'm just thinking of the licensing
trying.
deal and what if they had rights to it at that point or not, which they
Yeah,
wouldn't
I don't
have.
think they had rights to it with
They
the
wouldn't have
filming.
when they made this.
No,
Slowly
that's why they only
edited
called
it.
him Ursa or Ursa
Yeah.
instead of Ursa Major. So,
Yeah.
I just want to bring that up.
A little tip of the hat.
Continue, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah, very good. As like Joe was saying, like for Elena, for all the times she was mentioning about the pose, like some one-liners they drag on, but that one it did not it was just well enough. It didn't like drag on, but it was just enough that you know what. Every time that she said it, the whole theater just cracked up. That and also when she mentioned it, her vest, probably the two best scenes of her in the
When she
movie.
walked in wearing that vest, I was like, I've seen that vest before. And maybe that's the girl in me, because I was like, I know that vest. And then when she hands it off and you see like the 2 weeks later scene at the end, I was like, yep, that's the vest. That's the Infinity War vest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Brent, what you got for some of your favorite characters?
I mean, I'm going to echo what everyone said about Florence Pugh, but as far as favorite character overall, I'm still going to give it to Natasha. I mean, it was her movie, and I think she showed she could carry one. But yeah, Yelena, she was fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing her in the future. And we had already kind of heard some of the rumors, and we pretty much know where she's going to show up again, and we knew that before this movie even started. Great. I'm glad because it means we're not going to have to wait that long to see her. I'm excited for that. Tony, I'm with you on the music at the beginning. I thought it was just this creepy mashup of the visuals and the audio. And I know some people haven't liked that choice. I'm not a big Nirvana fan, and maybe that's part of it. So I don't feel like this, massive attachment to the original versions of their songs. But I thought it was a really cool visuals. It was creepy. It was right away. It just felt like during that scene, I'm thinking once again, they've managed to make a movie that just feels so different from everything else they're doing.
Mhm.
And no, I wouldn't say that feeling held true for the entire time. There are elements of it that felt, elements that felt like Captain America or elements that felt like other movies, but in general, it felt that way. Oleski, yes. I mean, David Harbour, he did a great job. Rachel Weisz, I was fine with her. I mean, I wouldn't say she was my favorite, but I didn't have any problems with her, and she definitely got a good laugh out of me. Taskmaster, we're going to talk about because I'm very split on Taskmaster.
Hold on. I want to say Eric McLean's in the chat. Joe, you're right. After breaking his hand, Alexa does say, and I do remember this, oh, look at the big bear. So,
Yeah,
well,
thank
know,
you.
maybe it's one of those characters that is a mutant, but the rights were split on.
Correct. That's
or
probably what it
subtle
was.
enough, or they were working enough with Fox at that point that Fox said, "Sure, I don't care."
Or it might just be a nice little tip of the hat. Like you can name this character, but not name this character. You know,
They could also have added that in ADR super easily,
yeah.
like
point.
super easily. All right, Thunderbolt Ross. I thought the de-aging on him in the trailers looked pretty bad. And I thought, oh, good. I'm glad the movie's not out yet. They have time to fix it. And this is where I'm going to disagree, Joe. I don't think they touched it. I still thought it looked bad.
okay.
And I don't understand why, because we saw him in Civil War. We saw him in Infinity War. And it's like they were trying to make him look even younger than he did in Civil War. But they didn't have to do that.
I mean, does William Hurt look a lot different than he did in?
See, now that I don't know. I would need to look at some
Yeah,
real life
same.
photos from the timeline. I did find it a little jarring there.
It was very
with his look.
noticeable.
And
Yeah, like
you know
you
what?
could definitely tell.
At the beginning of the movie, he served a vital role catching everyone up. Here's where we are. Sokovia Accords, Civil War just happened. She attacked the King of Wakanda,
Mhm.
all that stuff. Yes. At the end of the movie, it was totally pointless. I'm like, why? What was the point of having the cavalry show up? I mean, they didn't get there in time to help with anything regarding the Red Room, which was kind of the point of her calling them to begin with.
Yeah.
Like he didn't add anything to it in the end of the movie. So I felt like his presence, I liked him at the beginning, felt like his presence, it was just pointless at the end.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to pull one up just so we can see William Hurt. It's from
Current.
Civil War.
Okay.
It's as current as we can get
Gotcha.
right now. Because
While you do that, the accent thing, I noticed it a couple times, but usually that doesn't really throw me because I just don't care. I couldn't do those accents, so I'm like, whatever, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, they definitely messed with his look some, and in my opinion, they didn't need to.
Yeah.
I think it was more so. I really don't think they needed to because of the comments that they made for his deteriorating health. Like they could have just kept it in, and I know that might have been like a little bit of a jab at the way he normally looks, I guess. But I don't know.
I don't know. Saying he had another triple bypass, I think that was, in hindsight, that may have been laying groundwork for Red Hulk. He's weaker. He's going to start looking at the serum.
Well, did he have another one, or is she just referring to his triple bypass from Civil
In
War?
Civil War, she said he had one. In this, she said it was his second or third.
Yeah. She does make
And
reference to that.
it looked like he had a cane, unless I'm misremembering it. Which he did
No,
not
he was
have.
walking with the cane.
And he didn't have that cane in Infinity War. Of course, when we saw him there, he was a hologram. But
And
Okay,
I
good
will
point.
tell you what, that is a very hands-on secretary.
yes,
Right.
I was like,
very hands-on.
I was trying to remember, like, wait, he was a secretary. What? Interesting. He's in the. But honestly, Thunderbolt Ross would be hands on. So
Mhm.
I fit his character. And I'm glad he's still around. You know, for a long time, he was our only connection to the Incredible Hulk. So I'm glad he's still around.
Yeah, and he, as far as our records show, he was blipped, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Oh, okay.
again, echoing everyone. I think what I want to say with Florence Pugh, I think one of my it's definitely going to come off with like her jokes were just the more of like the uncomfortable or the awkward jokes at that point. And I think the most awkward one was on the plane where she's describing the hysterectomy, the forced hysterectomy.
I laughed at that one. That was great.
It was just like her delivery of it. Yes, it's an awful thing that happened. We know it's happened because Natasha went into it in Age of Ultron with her conversation with Bruce. And so, but it was just her delivery on a lot of different things. Just, it's a fish out of bottle in that sense of like she says, it's the first time ever I've get to be my own person for a change. I get to do what I want. And so, I'm looking forward to that. With Alexei, I enjoyed his kind of good humor nature. What I want to say about Alexei is this, and I want to go back to in the sense of, he is Russia's only successful super soldier. I want to go back to what Erskine said about the serum. Good becomes better, bad becomes worse. He's actually a pretty good guy. I know in the opening he's very much wanted to do that, but as he gets out and it generally looks like he cares for this family and has grown at that point, he's not too bad of a guy, in that sense. I'm not saying he hasn't done awful things. I'm just saying it's an interesting to see that he's not Steve, but he's not the worst. He's not the worst person to ever go for the super soldier serum, because we've seen what happens to the crazies of the failed Winter Soldier program.
Yep.
But yeah, his jokes at that point. I know no one's mentioned it, and I'm not saying he's my favorite, not a favorite character, but Dreykov as a villain, it goes back to what I said. He's a good Bond villain. Did his part.
Okay.
Did exactly what it was. I wasn't expecting much out of it. Very, very straight to the point. One could say it was one-dimensional, fine, but that is a lot of Bond villains in that sense. And I'm not saying, oh, good, put a sleeper agent around the nation. Oh, that's Hydra again. Okay, I am taking what this movie's trying to do at that point for the character that he's representing. So I appreciate it. I just wanted to kind of put it out there that he was an okay villain for what the purpose he served.
And not even just Bond villains, really just spy movie villains.
Mhm.
Like you're right. I didn't think of it like that, and thinking on it, because he wasn't, in my opinion, I thought he was just a whatever character. Like, okay, he's there. He's the whole reason why they're doing what they're doing. But you look at it through that lens of him being the Bond villain. I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. That's a good point, Chris. I didn't think of it that way.
And I agree with you, Brent. One of my favorites is Natasha. And I think it goes to the themes of the movie that really, really kind of rang home to me in my second time watching it at that point. The idea, not only just a family at that point, but the sins of the past coming back to haunt her, and the legacy of her own legacy in this world. Remember what Loki said in Avengers.
Glorious purpose.
Besides Glorious Purpose at that
No,
point,
the other line.
the other line at that point, just bringing it out, and I've got it in my notes right here. The calls out saying, "Can you wipe out that much red?" Dracov's daughter. We didn't know who the heck Dracov was at that point.
At that point, I thought they was referring to like Dracov as being her father.
Yeah. So that seed was set that all the way back in the first Avengers movie. So I think again it was her trying to deal with these issues in the past, and I think she may, like as you said, Katie, plays a little more second fiddle to Florence Pugh's character at that point, but I think she does a lot in this movie to showcase what exactly and bring it close to her character. At that
what
point.
what would have made this movie 10 times better for me and then probably put it at the top of my list is if this had been Florence Pugh's movie and Natasha Romanoff was a shining character to her. Florence Pugh's kind of like exploring and going, okay, this is how I got free kind of thing, and hitting that backstory, because I think the big difference between this film being a prequel, which I don't mind. Solo is one of my favorite Star Wars movies to date, and that's probably some people call that like the most stupidest prequel ever. I don't care. But for me,
you're entitled to your opinion. You're totally entitled.
I think the biggest thing it could have taken, being a the leading movie for Phase 4, was having it tell a story versus going back and telling a story from the current timeline in the MCU. So after Endgame, and saying, hey, can we take some characters from here and tell one of Natasha's shining moments as a hero in this sense? Because for her, she goes in and says, okay, the Avengers are my family, and leaves with the Avengers are my family and the Widows are my family. And well, like the family she cultivated in Ohio. Y'all get what I'm talking about. But like for me, there's nothing shining in Infinity War or Endgame that shows Natasha, other than the vest, was that Natasha was still caring about her widow family. If you take it and you say, okay, during the time frame of Infinity War and Endgame, she said, oh, okay, I need to go find those widows and try and help them find a place, because they literally just found that they are their own person now. So to me, it does a disservice to Natasha's character and doesn't really give her a shining close-off mark, because she knew the Avengers were her family. She talks about it in Infinity War and Endgame. And so there's nothing here that says, link me to the current timeline and say, this is why her death mattered. So yeah, that's my biggest thing with this film, is that if we get Florence Pugh's character in the post-credit scene, that could have been a connection at the beginning that says, let me tell you how I got free. Like she runs into Clark Barton or something. I don't know, but it's just, that's what really drives me insane, is that there's no tie to the last two movies that says this is why this movie should matter, other than we get a little bit of extra backstory and she helps recover her past that isn't shown in the last two movies. So
kind of want to switch gears a little bit and kind of look at kind of favorite moment, favorite sequences in this. And I want to start us off by, some of y'all kind of hinted towards it, but like the opening. I'm a huge fan of the show The Americans on FX, and my goodness, someone was definitely watching that show in order to kind of make this the kind of Russians living in America at that point, posing that. I mean, I love seeing that, but also that opening was probably the creepiest opening I've ever seen, and when very impressed that Marvel kind of went that way in just basically showing human trafficking, and in a different way, and the just mind warping stuff that these girls had to go through at that point. I think they did a very good job. Even the second time watching it early in the morning, I was very creeped out by the opening, and they succeeded in that purpose. What y'all think about how the movie kind of opened in the flashback?
I enjoyed it. I've recently, I mean, as far as the content that I watch on Netflix and stuff, a lot of stuff recently has been like 90s based. So seeing the opening 1995, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I'm like, the very first time you see 1995, I'm kind of thinking, wait a minute, how old is Natasha in this film? Like in the MCU as a whole, I'm like, is she really that young or whatever? So, trying to play with timelines and stuff. But I do like that opening. I absolutely love the opening. The kind of not, I don't want to say gaslighting, but like kind of lying to protect the kids. Like, hey, do you remember how I said we were going to have that adventure one of these days? Well, today's the day. And you think it's going to be like them kind of playing that game of, oh, this is an adventure, you'll be safe. The very next thing you see is him grabbing the rifle and Elena grabbing all the bullets for him. I'm like, oh my God, what in the world? Like, are they just going to start like having a war zone in their freaking neighborhood? What is about to happen? But the plane scene was great for, your first kind of action scene. It did make, tensions high when people were actually getting shot. We didn't know exactly what was happening at that point. And I do like when you go far into the past like that, because you can play around with things and still be shocked by the outcome. If it's a little sooner, say what the entire movie is about, like I said, this was engaging enough for me to say, hey, I don't care about it being in the past until literally the last 5 minutes. But in 1995, when tensions were high, I was like, I don't know what's happening. I have no idea how they're going to get out of this, what's going to happen. And I do like that about the opening for sure.
I'm the Spubs in the chat saying I thought Alexei was going to fall off the plane and how he would have ended up in prison. I was just wondering, how did he get back in that plane? that's one
I don't know if he got
I
back
think he
in the
did.
plane.
He definitely got back in the plane because they showed him getting out of the plane with Melina. I assumed they landed somewhere else between Ohio and Cuba, while Melina still had enough wits about her to talk young Natasha through the lane. It's a headcanon. I don't know.
Yeah.
The other alternative is he climbed in the plane when they were up in the air, and that feels less likely to me. By the way, young Natasha, played by Ever Anderson, she did a fantastic job.
Mhm.
Mila Jovovich is her mother. I just think that's
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Very nice.
So just a nice little bit of trivia there. But I thought both of the young actresses did a really great job of capturing their characters. Violet McGraw was young Elena, and like that scene after the plane has landed when they go to take Elena and Natasha pulls the gun off the guy, like kicks his arm away and pulls the gun. I mean, to me, that felt like Black Widow.
Mm-hmm. And it was interesting just seeing that, like, okay, she's received some training already.
Yeah.
And Yelena has obviously gotten a little bit, but it hasn't been formalized because they make that statement like you were, she is not the youngest they've had to train before.
Well,
I
they
don't
said
think
she
she
was
because
6.
Oh, she
And
is?
that-
Okay, gotcha.
And
Yeah.
then he goes, well, you were younger when you started.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah.
I
So,
think, well, because she acts like she was literally pulled off and then thrown into this as like an adopted, because Yelena specifically says she has, like, she thought it was real, like, completely. And I
Mhm.
get like being younger and stuff, like sometimes you fall into that rut, but for me, I thought she was literally pulled off, and then they said, yeah, you look like the rest of this family, okay, you're gonna go with them.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, the exact quote is, she's only 6. And that's when Alexi said, and you were even younger.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. See, it helps when you're watching the movie right live, right, Clay?
Yes, for sure.
Before I'm going to toss it to anyone who wants to give another favorite scene or sequence as we go through this, do our second ad break. Listeners, again, these ads keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So I'm going to give you that 3 count to turn that volume down. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, who's got a favorite scene or sequence? Obviously, leave out the end credits. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Who wants to go?
I felt that, like, and of course I do feel kind of duped because of how the film ended up being. But one of my favorite scenes is what I felt was going to be like the tone of the movie, which technically it kind of was. When Natasha and her sister are after the first encounter of them, like the whole throwing around the apartment, and we've all had our before going live quips about that. They're getting shot at, they're running, and there's another assassin that is running after them, and she ends up falling. Now, I did write notes about Natasha's secret super strength when she falls down as well. But when I do love
that she talked to the power broker, right? We already know what's going on.
Yes. I do love how her time with the Avengers has changed her. And that was a big part of this movie about, like, hey, I'm not just that girl who was in the Red Room. I am now a hero in some aspect, even though that family is technically broken at the moment. She was trying to help that individual, and you saw, like, her leg was broken and she couldn't move. And that one moment, for like a split second, I got Winter Soldier vibes. Like, for that one scene, I was like, this is how the rest of the movie's gonna be. Let's go. Because then you see a little bit more of the mind control, which I think Tony teased this in his non-spoiler thoughts about how things were not necessarily comic book accurate, quote unquote, with how the Red Room was, which I am so glad that they actually talked about it in the movie. They talked about it with Natasha and then Rachel's character as well, saying that they were not necessarily mind controlled, but they were conditioned to do what they had to do while technology has advanced. And even with us in reality watching these movies, you're like, conditioning, is that really going to be believable? Well, now you can believe, hey, this is mind control, right? It's something just added to it. And we get the first glimpse of that when you see that assassin just take herself out. And I was like, holy crap. And another thing, do you guys feel like shit was used way too much in this movie? The word shit.
Bullshit? Maybe?
Bullshit and shit was used a lot. I noticed it a lot. So
Very
I was
relatable. Yeah.
I had
Well-
other problems with that one, in like theater wise, so I don't know.
Life started imitating art imitating
Yes,
life at
exactly.
that point.
in
Yeah.
Joe's theater, yes, we know that, but I felt like it was happening, or it was being said a whole lot, and it doesn't bother me at all. I just, for me, I noticed it, and I was like, okay, whatever, and I moved on. But it was just something that I noticed.
Usually I would say being a PG-13, it's Marvel movies. You don't expect to hear it as much, so that's probably another part of that.
Yeah.
But I think it also goes into kind of the culture that we're dealing with, in the sense of what they're representing. But you're right. I did start noticing it a little bit, but that's what I chalked it up to.
Okay.
It was there a lot. I thought it was funny, actually, every time they did that. But it, like everybody, myself included, thinks, oh, it's Disney. It's, prim and proper and nothing, nothing so vile as cursing or whatever. And so like it does kind of like make me laugh every time I hear it in an MCU movie. But this movie had it more than most, but most MCU movies have some of it. Not as much as this one did, but some of it. I mean, and this one used the word douchebag, for example. Not even the first MCU movie to use the word douchebag, but I mean, they definitely. Well, I mean, they don't. You don't get F-bombs, but they'll drop some language, no problem.
It'll be fun. It'll be a special feature on the Blu-ray and the 4K at that point that you can insert language from Chris Evans at that point. He's recorded it. It's ready to go. What other sequences anyone kind of wants to call out some of their favorites?
I loved when Alexei broke out of the prison. Like he gets the doll of himself. He pulls the cord, just kind of reminiscing. The head pops off. He puts the earpiece in, and then he just has that smile on his face. Goes up to the guards and just rips them right through the guard shack, proving that he could have got out any time if he really wanted to. He didn't know why he was in jail. He was saying that when he was in the plane or in the helicopter.
Well, he kind of said he kind of knew he kind of figured out like him speaking out against Dreykov, basically.
Yeah, yes, but he just could have got out whenever, and he chose to stay there and just kind of become top dog. But then him actually breaking out was just fun to see. I had a lot of fun with that one. I laughed.
The whole moment of don't make a scene, and he immediately makes a scene.
Exactly.
That joke hit really well with me. It was really, really funny.
Now, let me ask you all this at that point, because Travis Hines and he and I were talking about this morning at that point. Do you all think that him and Captain America ever met?
So I have a thought on that.
Isaiah Bradley, maybe.
Exactly.
That Hines was talking
thought.
about that, but I don't think so either on that one.
It doesn't track.
I was very confused with the timeline, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" and I thought that was the joke. So I was like, "Okay," too. And that's the whole reason why he gets like a little mad when it comes to Ursa when he does the arm wrestle, because he's calling him out on it. And so I was like, "Oh, that's the whole joke. I get it now." But I didn't even put into perspective possibly Bradley being the Captain America that he's talking about.
Because the years he said, Isaiah was presumed dead and he got out of jail. I'm not saying that he went and put the shield on again, but he was around. And maybe Alexei just like, oh, well, he's a Captain America. Doesn't care if he has a shield or not.
Well, there was another variant out there.
True.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, maybe.
In the 80s?
Yeah. But I thought by that point, at least remembering Falcon and Winter Soldier, that he was basically
he was
Vietnam, Vietnam, post-Vietnam, he was already in jail.
Yeah, but in the 80s is when they faked his death. Some didn't say when in the 80s. Just in the 80s.
They faked his death. I don't think Isaiah's looking for a fight.
Correct. He just went into hiding.
Yeah.
Again, not to say that Alexei didn't run into him at some point in time. I don't think it's what happened, but
his whole thing is like I consider myself a contemporary, colleague, whatever. I thought that was nice, but again, it's just we all know he's just lying because he wants to. He wanted to be the Captain America of Russia.
Mm-hmm. I don't think Steve Rogers has ever even heard of him.
No.
Nope. No, not at that point. So, but no, I think that's a good sequence. Katie, what do you got for one of your favorite scenes?
Definitely, I think the prison rescue scene was probably my favorite. Just kind of getting to see all those characters interact. Really, another good one I think is really just kind of where Scarlett Johansson or Natasha and Dreykov, that kind of scene where they're finally confronting each other, and even though she's dressed as Melina up front, I thought that was really cool. And I this is the point where I talked to the movie and I was like, okay, she's trying to break your nose to block the smell, like hormones things. And I just thought that was probably really the most. I'm trying to figure out the word for this. That was probably the highlight of of Scarlett Johansson's performance for me, was seeing that scene and her kind of really confronting it. That's probably her best moment in the film for me.
I like it that she basically pays, again, it's homage to the first Avengers, where she plays Loki for the fool at that point to reveal enough. And she has that moment saying, oh, so you're doing this. That's what you're saying. That's a complete callback, and it was done even better this time.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll say it. I was going to say the Taskmaster fights, but I'm going to say this specifically. I like the free fall at the end. I know that's something I've seen some criticism of the CGI on, and there's a couple spots here in that sequence where like, okay, well, that part was obviously CGI, but in general, I really enjoyed that sequence. I thought it was a blast to watch. So I'm going to throw that part out there.
If I'm not mistaken, and again, someone's going to probably yell at me at that one, that's another callback to Moonraker. I think at the end of Moonraker, there's a sequence similar to that at that point. And the whole idea with it, like superhumans around the globe trying to take up, I mean, that's the same thing in Moonraker. So
Probably,
what you got, Tony?
when we meet Melina again, because when we first see like she seems all this sweet, innocent mom, and then out of nowhere she's this like sick lady. She almost kills a pig. I'm like, man, this woman has a dark side. Like her face was like, oh, don't worry, it's fine. Like, are you sure? Because my whole theory was like, oh my god, what's happening? We just the whole pig scene was like, oh, cute, and then just got very dark. Because even my fans like did not think that was gonna happen at all. Like, is this pig gonna die? Man,
The PETA people are going to be ticked.
yeah.
Right?
God, man, I don't kill an animal.
I will say that part actually did a really good job at making me uncomfortable watching it, because it's in the back of your mind. Yeah, they're all talking and you're wanting to get the information for the movie, but you still know that pig is suffocating, and it made me very unsettled.
Well, wasn't it Natasha the one that's saying, okay, can you bring the pig back at that point?
Yeah. Well, and even like the pig scene, to me, that was almost more chilling than having the widow take the gun to her head, because it's just like, okay, like you gave her a quick out, but then the pig is literally sitting here like
suffering. Yeah. 100%.
Well, even going to that, that's one of my other favorite things, is just what I call the family reunion, them sitting around the table and kind of reminiscing at that point. But like you had brought up, Clay, listening for the information. Melina talking about, their mission in Ohio, North Institute in Ohio, SHIELD. Well, really, it was Hydra. Love that callback, posing as SHIELD to get their knowledge of the Winter Soldier program, unlocking the potential to control free will. That is a huge that's what Hydra was. That's what Project Insight was, taking out the whole idea of anyone who would question that authority. But to the point of Yelena even saying, I thought it was real. I thought the family was real. I needed this. I need this in some way, shape, or form to be real for me. And that's definitely in consideration of some of my top kind of non-action moments, is that family reunion scene.
Agreed. And it was real. Just to be perfectly clear, for all four of them, it was real. And everything in the opening sequence tells you that. Each character has a moment in that opening sequence telling you it was real for them. I mean, Yelena, the entire thing. She's just excited to go on adventure with her family. Natasha makes the point of saying she doesn't want to leave Ohio. Melina, she takes the scrapbook, the picture book, like the family photo album. And okay, to be fair, we don't know if she takes it during that time, but did anyone not think she was going to grab it when she made Natasha put it back down? No. Yeah. And then, of course, at the end, Oleski, when he gets Natasha to put the gun down and basically distracts them while they're being drugged, Yelena had like a little stuffed animal with her that she had dropped. He picked it up and took it with him.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that if it's not real. The whole thing, and the way they would fall back into like old family dynamics, like the two sisters fighting or yelling at their parents or being embarrassed by their dad, or even embarrassing their dad, like the whole thing we talked about with the forced hysterectomies earlier, where they readdressed that, but they still did it in a way that embarrassed their dad. Their whole dynamic was absolutely incrediable.
Dad talking about getting peed on,
35 degrees Celsius,
Or
not only
dad
that-
talking about how he had a lot of energy. That's their table.
Yes.
Well, not only
Totally.
that, but also like when he was singing American Pie, like
Yes.
my theater
Yes.
was the biggest smile on my face when I was hearing him sing that song. Like, wow, that's a very touching moment. Like him just singing that from the last moment they were in America.
Well, and
Oh,
especially right after he had just tried to tell a story to Yelena to try to connect with her,
Mhm.
and it meant nothing to her because
Mhm.
she had no idea what the heck he was talking about. And then he gets
Well-
up, walks over, and he starts singing the song, and it hits on her like, okay, yeah, he did care.
Well, even just the use of not only use of it then, but also in the beginning of the movie as they're basically trying to escape, it's perfect because the whole song "American Pie" is about the loss
Mhm.
of innocence of American music as it comes of age, much like Natasha, Yelena,
Yep.
the family itself. They've just lost everything at that one moment. It's a perfect use of that song.
It's just a perfect song too. So.
True, especially as you're seeing Americana go by, like the kids playing flashlight tag. You've got
Mhm.
The
American
football game.
Yep.
Yeah. But also just saying young Elena singing that song, I have it, the very first thing I wrote in the notes. Very creepy. Like I don't know why. It just gave me creepy vibes before the Smells Like Teen Spirit scene. Like so,
Is because you think she killed Buddy Holly?
probably.
Sorry.
I want to mention because I want to give everyone spins. We finally go to Budapest. Is Budapest what at least at
That's
this point?
bullshit.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Okay, Katie, go for it. All right.
And this is where I'm like, okay, so we could have had like the Budapest scene. That's a prequel I'd love to get. Is tell me how Natasha, like, which granted we kind of got it here, but like I'd love to see that like outlined, whether it's just like a short like one-off TV episode or whatever. But anyways, like because at least we know like what Budapest was for. So yeah, that's my opinion. But when they called attention to it, and the guy that like says, "Oh yeah, I brought your mail from Budapest," and then she's like, "Oh yeah, like what am I supposed to do with that?" I was like, "Okay, what the heck is going on? Like, is this Budapest? Like, is this really what we're about to get?" Because like we were told, like the Hawkeye guy was like, "Oh yeah, like he's gonna be in here." No, he wasn't. Like spoiler alert, but that was like a
Yeah, his
big
voice was
rumor
in
with
that.
this movie.
I thought there was a legit gonna be like a flashback scene of maybe even like 2 seconds of what their experience was inside them hiding in that place for 2 days. Like
Mhm.
even that would have been like, okay, we saw something.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, they
Yeah,
had the Hangman
like,
game that they didn't
showing
finish
him,
for
like-
butt sex.
But that's what I mean. Like we only
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
we only saw
Sorry. I'm so
We-
sorry.
we only saw the results of them hiding out. We
Mhm.
didn't actually get to see what that was. And I legitimately thought because of the rumors of Clint being there in this movie, which I mean, technically, not technically, maybe he was in there, maybe not. We'll get to it when
Voice.
we get to the movie, to the end of the movie. But I felt that there could have been maybe one scene,
Mhm.
and it could have just been them playing tic-tac-toe, and I would have been like,
Yeah.
okay, we got something.
Yeah, because I don't consider this like Budapest. And I mean, we know Clint's like, "Oh yeah, we're never talking about Budapest again." And I'm like, I want to know more. So for me, yeah, the whole going to Budapest was bullshit.
Well, you mentioned someone that I was getting very frustrated, and if I missed it, I missed it twice then, and I had to go to the credits. Her basically our courier at that point, OT, the actor. Anyone catch his name? Because I had to go to the
I-
credits.
Mason.
Because even I know it's Mason, but it's not even in closed captioning. At no
No.
point does it
No.
ever go to Mason in closed captioning.
So for me, and this shows how much that I do not know about Marvel. I thought, and maybe somebody can give me the actual name. I can't remember him even in the video game. I thought he was the Quinjet pilot in Marvel Ultimate Alliance for Fantastic Four. Like they
No, that's Dum Dum Dugan.
is it Dum Dum
I
Dugan?
think pretty sure that was Dum Dum Dugan.
Okay, because I thought that there was somebody that was specifically a pilot for the Quinjet in Shield at some point or another, and I thought that was that character. And I was looking for a name and
Oh.
looking for a name.
It's not Dum Dum Dugan. It's I'll try and find it. It's not him either though.
Okay, that because I thought maybe it was some sort of like, hey, first appearance type thing, but
So
Yeah, it
For
was
the
just like,
record, I think Budapest was just fine as is. I'm going to be the one to say we didn't need a cameo. We didn't need Hawkeye to show up. It would have just distracted. We just would have had people complaining, oh, of course, Marvel did another cameo. It was Scarlett Johansson's movie. Let it be Scarlett Johansson's movie. After
Fair.
all this time, after she cameoed in other people's movies or she guest starred in other people's movies, no, screw that. It was her movie. We didn't need it. And frankly, the legend of Budapest. Oh, it's like Budapest all over again. You and I remember that very differently. It was never going to live up to it. They can't show it to us.
True.
It will not live up to it. Whatever you have in your head will not match if you ever see it.
it's better apparently.
That's a very fair point, Britt. However, I'm gonna say she sacrificed herself for him, and then that's like the biggest part of her Avengers family.
She
And we
sacrificed herself for everybody.
she
Not
also
just for him.
sacrificed. True, but she also sacrificed herself so Clint could be with his family.
Lest
she
we
could-
forget,
Because
Family.
they both had things that they wanted to pay penance for
Yes.
by doing this. And so she specifically goes, no, I'm going. And yes, she may have sacrificed so the world could come back, but they both were on the table. And she could have just as easily said, okay, yeah, sure, bye.
well, remember we
Clay,
do
it's
have a
why-
we do have a Hawkeye show, so we may also get some stuff there. We may not, but I agree with you, Brent, that the legend. When the legend becomes factory print, the legend in our head is a lot better than what would ever be depicted.
Clay, the answer to your question is Wyatt Wingfoot. That's the character that was.
that's the name. Yes, I thought it was going to be Wyatt.
But yeah, that was frustrating because I just don't think he was ever named even in the movie until the credits. And like I said, you watch closed captioning whenever he's on screen, he's never given a name at that point. So
That's
I
fair.
I enjoyed it. I don't know if he's going to be one of these one-off characters, but they definitely didn't. I want to say he even got it on a character poster at some point.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So so
So here's my thing about the whole Budapest flashback scene, and this is going to dive into a character that we have not touched on yet. So I guess, I mean, it's all spoilers.
yeah,
so,
go for it. Yeah.
she is following Dreykov's daughter, Antonia, who is like what 10, something like that. Very young girl,
Yep.
and she's following her to get to Dreykov, and then inevitably calls in like a drone strike to kill Dreykov, inevitably killing Antonia as well. How did Antonia get all scarred up when she gets revealed to become Taskmaster? Shocker reveal. How is she all scarred up, but Dreykov is not? If they were in the
It's
same room.
it's not an airstrike. It was
It
the
was
briefcase.
A bomb.
Yeah.
It was a bomb. Oh, okay,
Yeah, the briefcase that she was right next to.
gotcha.
So that's why she got the blunt
The
force
blunt
of
of it?
everything. Yeah.
Again, only saw the movie one time, so I need to see it again before I can actually give like a I have my rating when we get to the end, but it will definitely change upon a second viewing.
Yeah.
Okay, well that answers my question. Thank you.
Yep, there. Trying to think of anything. Anyone have any other favorite scenes, favorite sequences before we change over to maybe least favorites, least favorite things, moments, characters? I know we're probably all going to have a similar character in mind.
Yeah, character. I mean, obviously everyone's thinking Taskmaster. As Taskmaster, I thought it was great. I love the
Yes.
action scenes. My complaint there would be we'd kind of seen all of it in the trailers
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they had to do
Yep.
extra trailers. And I'm like, okay, I understand there were extra trailers involved in this because they had to ramp up the marketing multiple times. It kind of stinks to have seen that much of it ahead of time. But still seeing the sequences together was really cool to watch.
My girlfriend, at the end of the movie, my girlfriend leaned over to me and she's like, "So we literally just saw the whole movie in the trailer." I'm like, yeah, kind of. Because all the Taskmaster scenes were there. All of the
I wouldn't say that.
There was a few.
I wouldn't go.
I
I
mean,
wouldn't go that far
most
into
of
the
them.
whole movie.
Yeah.
The last
a
shot
good
of her,
Yes, you
not
did
with
see
the
the
wig,
last.
but the last shot of her before the 2-week jump was in the
Yes.
trailers. And
Yeah,
in my
that is-
opinion, that should never be there.
Well, I think here's the whole thing. Taskmaster, it was obviously done very differently than what it is in comics. That doesn't bother me as much. What bothers me in the sense of this is where we get into as fans. The problem is where we expect a lot more out of a character we know and have seen throughout the series and expect a little bit more. But what we got out of it worked well for the purpose of the movie.
Yeah.
And so if you separate yourself from that instead of what you wanted with what you got, okay, yeah, you could be upset you didn't get what you wanted, but make your own movie at that point. Can Taskmaster come back in the MCU? The character, the idea behind it? Yes, Taskmaster has been a lot of different people. Hasn't been the same person always,
I just think if they have some work to do if they want to
Yes.
show him again. The first place to me would be probably the Thunderbolts, but they have some work to do if we're going to care about this character beyond 3 pretty cool fight scenes.
Yeah. I thought, but here's the other thing. I call in my mind, and I called it she was Taskmaster after we kept on revisiting. What about the daughter? What about the daughter? What about the daughter? Say, okay, she's Taskmaster.
So early on, I thought Taskmaster was at least female because I thought it was Raquel Weiss. Sorry, Melina. I thought that's who it was. Like she was just playing everybody. So I was right on it being a female, but have it be revealed to be an Antonia. I'm like, okay, for the story, it makes sense because Dreykov's daughter is injured. What's the best way to keep her alive? Well, throw her in the program. Why not? Like it's gonna keep her alive, and now she can fight, and he can control her even more, which is problems all on its own. But that reveal, as annoying as it was, whatever. Okay, I get it. I get why they did it. Would I have liked to have been a better reveal? Yeah. Would I like to see Taskmaster return? Yes. Does it have to be Antonia? No. So we'll see.
Well, before I jump into Taskmaster, because Chris did ask if there was any other parts that we enjoyed in the movie, just because I'm watching it right here.
There you go.
The moment where it's right after the singing scene with Alexei and Elena, but when the light shines, I will admit I jumped. It was 3 a.m. at that point, so I mean, it did the noise and everything kind of like woke me up. But in very MCU fashion, the dart scene when they're shooting him in the chest, it was very much an MCU moment, which I actually enjoyed. The one dart, and I was just like, oh, they're going to shoot him with more. That's going to happen. And just like the sound effects that they used for the darts made it so well. So I did really enjoy that moment.
Yeah.
But moving on to Taskmaster, I feel like Black Widow, in a way, and I know people will probably take this in a wrong way, but I will explain it. Black Widow as a movie is probably the most comic book movie in the sense of this is how the plot goes. Here's the very obvious twist. Here is the notion of like, hey, no story is original anymore type of thing. Because everybody was like, oh, this is Winter Soldier, but different. I think even Snell said this is this is Winter Soldier, but not as good, I think is what he's quoted in Geekverse. But the twist of Taskmaster, I will say the kind of like Iron Man like hub that we saw in the very beginning, I almost thought like, if this thing's an android, if this is like the Terminator, let's do it. Like, this is a new reiteration that we've never really seen before. Because when I saw that she was going to be a part of this franchise, Taskmaster has been like a very diverse kind of character recently in comics.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen him very, very serious, very, very deadly. But recently, you've seen him very, very jokey.
Yep.
And so you're like, okay, where are they going to take him? I didn't necessarily think he was going to be the jokey type in a Black Widow movie because of the tone that we were seeing, but you never know, There could have possibly been moments. But just seeing that almost Terminator feel to the character was fun while it lasted. I will say that. I will not agree with, seeing all of her moments in the trailers. Maybe that was because I didn't see all of them, which, I mean, thankfully I was able to hold back on a lot of those. But I did, like, when the reveal happened, it didn't surprise me. Like, I didn't guess it, but I was like, okay, that's a very comic book thing to do. Let's move on.
I like your idea of, because I originally, I could think about the idea of do it kind of a RoboCop thing, in the sense of take your the best Widow you thought that might have died in action, but she was the best at that point, and just put the brain or whatever into become the Taskmaster at that point, and do that. So I like that. But I thought this was interesting. You know how we see Taskmaster in the sense of analyzing, Natasha, which I thought was cool. We never saw the face, and I know why. Obviously, we weren't trying to do the reveal, but also when we realized who it was, we still didn't see the face inside. But you flipped at it with Tony. We see Tony's humanity. We see exactly what Tony's seeing and doing at that point. Mm-hmm. He's got the humanity. She does not.
Yep.
The free will is gone. So.
No. I would say this, as you guys were saying, how Taskmaster, I do wish it was more comic accurate, but I understand why they changed it for story purposes. Because I'm used to the witty banter. So yeah, sure, I would love to see Taskmaster witty banter with Spider-Man in the MCU or the Moon Knight or whatever. But the two things that really disappoint me the most with Taskmaster is, one, I kind of wish that when Black Widow put the antidote in Taskmaster's face, she was almost it fixed her a bit. It made almost a remorse, I felt. But I wish we got full on evil. I wish antidote. No, I wish she still wanted to kill Black Widow. And they underutilized her so much, because we market Taskmaster so much, have Funkos in all the trailers, poster, but we didn't really get much of her even in the movie. I feel like they could have done a bit more, maybe Taskmaster is fighting these unknown characters who, at that point, let's show us how badass the character is. Because just lay waste to these characters who we don't care about, these unknown gods.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, again, I think it was more put in the trailer than we would have thought at that point. It's more of not the quote unquote real villain at that point. Dreykov's the real villain behind the scenes, pulling everyone's strings. But I want to take our last ad break. We'll wrap up with Least, and we'll finally get to the infamous Easter egg and rankings and where we see this film taking the MCU. So, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our last and final ad break. Again, these ads keep the lights on at the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So we're going to give you that 3 count before we take you to the ads. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. So, any more least favorite scenes, moment? I think we've beaten Taskmaster down at that point. So we'll
Every scene with Elena.
Whoa.
I'm sorry. Florence Pugh or
But
whatever.
the hair flip.
That
Clay.
was, I will tell you right now, that was when I noticed, like on top of her voice, when I first noticed it, I was like, ugh. But when I understood the second time around when they did the whole like superhero pose thing, I was like, okay, this is going to be a joke going throughout the entire movie. And even near the end, when she tried to do it herself, it did get a chuckle out of me. But I felt that the comment about the superhero pose just was not organic. And it was just like, hey, insert joke here. And so I didn't like that at all. The moments of like when they were rescuing Alexei, these are two assassins, super spies, whatever you want to call them. They didn't really act and or perform like they were assassins or super spies. And I know, and I didn't really notice it until Travis said it on Geekverse, but she did have a very robotic kind of, and Chris, you said it here, like very awkward sense of communication throughout this entire film. So I do understand, hey, maybe she is like, you know, she's not really familiar with social norms or whatever because she was under control for so long. I can understand that. But just her like the moment with her vest. Oh, this is the first thing I've ever got to buy for myself. It's a sweet moment, but like, oh, dude, you just don't know. It's all these pockets and everything. I'm just like, yeah, no, it doesn't sell it.
Clay. And
That
Katie
was so true.
Katie can attest to this though. Girls like pockets.
Girls
they want
like
pockets in their
pockets.
jeans. They can't get them in their jeans.
I
My girlfriend complains
understand.
about it all the time.
Talk to
So
a girl in a
pocket-
dress with pockets.
Yes.
Compliment it every time. It's got pockets. No
Yes.
offense, Katie. Every time. It's that.
We-
I guarantee you that hit with them.
My
and my
phone
wife-
can't fit in my pocket.
So me and my wife, we had a contest to see what all I could fit in my 4 pockets, and what she could fit in hers. So I
Yeah, wonder
totally
who won.
understand. I totally understand the sentiment of like the pockets or whatever. But again, that I feel like although it's very, very true in the sense of female fashion, it does hark back to what Katie was saying. They just made that scene so that way, hey, remember, this is the same vest that Natasha's wearing in Infinity War. Like, it didn't really have a whole lot to it. But yeah, I did not like Elena's like character the entire movie.
Stop.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That is
That's
the
fine.
hottest take I
Yep.
will
Yes.
hear. About Katie,
Well, like
you
even
have been dethroned.
even Travis is like, oh, she's like the number one in like all of acting right now, and I'm just like,
okay.
I'm sorry.
hold on.
I want to record that and just keep that going. The actions you just did and everything that was great.
Well, let me see if I can pull off my best Snell right
Oh
now.
gosh.
Oh god.
You, bro.
No, I'm just-
No, but she is a great. Like I liked her in Midsummer or Midsommar, however you say that. Her performance in that was amazing, and that's a really, really freaky movie. That's really the only one I know she's been in other movies, and I can't recall them off the top of my head. But that's the one that's my go-to. And so seeing her in this, I was like, okay, cool. This is great. I liked her performance. I can't agree with you on that one. That's your thoughts, even if they're wrong. But so let's go ahead and move on to the mind control or the. Go ahead, Katie.
This is 110% Florence Pugh's movie. I don't care what you say. This was her movie. She shined in it.
it was
So,
her movie,
I can see
but
that.
she didn't do great in it.
She was by far the breakout star of this
Yeah.
movie.
Yes.
Not even close.
Yep, not even close. But mind
I would just like
control.
to highlight she is an Academy Award nominated actress.
Isn't
And
most
I
of
have
Hollywood?
6 podcasts.
Damn,
One
okay.
of those is more relevant than the other.
Ouch.
All right, Joe,
Okay, so the mind
Joe,
control.
take us to mind control, and then we'll
Um,
move on to the Easter eggs. I mean, the
the-
end credit.
The one thing that bugged me about the mind control, and it's not even that it is a repeat copy paste of Winter Soldier. If you look at the time frame, it makes sense. Bucky gets the serum from Howard Stark in 91, and where does he take it to? He takes it to the Hydra base in Russia. Well, guess Russia obviously is gonna do what they can. Chris mentioned it earlier. Alexei was probably the only good soldier that the serum took, where the rest of them went bad, and then they had to keep freezing them. And that's assuming that he got the serum in 91.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he lies. He's a storyteller.
No, you were
but
right.
having
The
the
first time
girls-
liar.
Well, yeah. Having the girls be manipulated, I guess, because I don't really want to call it mind control, because they still have their wits. They're still doing things. They've been trained to think this way. They've been trained a certain way, and that's all they know. The mist that basically not releases their inhibitions, but allows them to get their faculties back. Like I get it. You need a reason for Yelena to basically go rogue from the Red Room, from the Black Widows, and to bring in Natasha. But we also know that Natasha herself, because of Budapest, this was her way to get into the Avengers. How did she initially get away from that mind control from all
So
It
my
wasn't
thought
mind
process.
control.
that?
Yeah, my
you
thought
know what I'm
process-
saying. But how does she break that cycle? Unless she was not the one being tested on, because Yelena does
Again,
mention
She was not the one being tested on.
Yeah, she wasn't.
Elena does
because
mention she was tested. She got tested on that. So okay, okay.
because they did talk about how the difference between conditioning and mind control. They did talk about it in the film, so that way.
But again,
You
what
could
Chris
kind
said
of-
earlier, mind control is like you just call it mind control because that's the easiest thing to say. Yeah, you're right.
So let's refer to it
was
as
better.
control serum and then the conditioning.
Yeah.
And in this case, Natasha didn't have the serum enforced in her training.
But she had
But
something
she-
because she could not attack what's his name? Dreykov.
So that was the
because
science
the pheromones.
where every widow was conditioned in their training to have that basically injected that says, hey, if you smell this, don't attack.
Okay.
One last thing, and I don't want to discuss your boy because I think it's very obvious. I think at the end when Natasha's yelling, "No, don't do it," Yelena puts the thing and gonna blow up the thing that
Right.
Dreykov's on at that point. Bad CGI.
What?
Bad sequence.
Like
Yeah.
like
bad
old
sequence.
school.
And again, I'm a DC fan. At that point, I'm going to say this: we all saw, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Cal no at that point. That was also bad. It's along the same lines at that point. It was just bad. Just bad.
Yeah.
After a year, they could have done better with that. It was a bad sequence. Bad CGI. But
I mean, that's also
Um,
probably just thinking that it was done 2 years ago, and they were just ready to put it out, and like, we don't have to touch it up. It's fine.
take pride in
It's
your
fine.
work then.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But anyway, so end credit scene. So we get one end credit, not two. We get one end credit. We get Yelena getting out of the car. We get she has a dog and it's named Fanny. Everyone catch that call back to that was one of the names that Mason gave her at that point. Go to the gravesite. Very touching moment. I think that was good. And then we get the blowing of the nose of that. A lot of us, I know, Travis and I were talking about it when we were early on in our days that this was probably going to be kind of talking about at that point once Val showed her face in Falcon and Winter Soldier at that point, that this movie was supposed to come out before Falcon and Winter Soldier. This was not going to be the first. This was not the second time. It's going to be the first time we see Valentina. And she says, and I want to get this right at that point, she's allergic to the Midwest, and she's got a job. She got her next job, and she wants to she says, and we got to be careful with the words you assume. Says, here is your next target. Show you the man who's responsible for his sister's death. That is all she says. That is all Valentina says. Here is your next target. We don't know what she means by the next target. Many people are assuming you're going to kill Clint at that point. We don't know that. And knowing anything about Valentina in the comics, I'll call a line from BVS. Don't believe everything you hear, son. At that point, there's a little bit more to that, and I don't think it's a kill order at that point.
The notion of them already having a working relationship, I felt was really nice, because it builds upon, like, you kind of hope, and it's not necessarily going to happen, but the way the movie ends before this post credit, you kind of hope, like, hey, maybe there can be some sort of normality, especially after the snap or the blip or whatever you want to call it. Like, maybe she found some sort of normality within all of that. But, her working with Val, you're like, okay, what is she doing? Like you said, a lot of people are assuming this is going to be a kill order. Could be a recruitment. Could be...
He did lead the Thunderbolts.
Yep.
Did lead it at the time.
So I will say, though, I almost, because even if it were to happen, I don't even care if we had an explanation here or maybe in another movie. She whistled, and I was like, holy crap, do it. Just show her. Just freaking have freaking Black Widow there, have Natasha there, and it didn't happen. And I was like, I wasn't like heartbroken that it didn't happen. I was heartbroken in the sense of, like, oh, that's really sad for her as a character. But, like, for a split second, I was like, this is going to be like a freaking Homeward Bound moment where you're just going to see her walking over the hill. It's like, oh my God.
For me, I wasn't expecting Natasha to come back, like, especially after seeing, I think it was Phase Zero did an interview with her, and the way she talked about ending her career as Natasha, like, this is it for her. So I think for me, one thing that I would have thought of would have been, like, if Clint was there and maybe Clint had said, like, Clint worked with Natasha and Natasha said, hey, if you ever hear this, like, this is my sister, like, protect her or whatever. So I was kind of expecting that. I wasn't, well, okay, Valentina was not necessarily unexpected, but I wasn't expecting the movies and the TV shows to cross over so soon, I guess.
Yeah. What are anyone else's thoughts on the end credits?
Yeah, I thought the same thing about the whistle. In fact, I think it almost seemed too obvious. So part of me is glad they didn't do it that way, because I just, it feels too early. I'm not against her coming back. It's comic books. Everybody can come back eventually. It just feels too early, being only the second movie post Endgame, the fourth project or whatever, because of the Disney Plus shows. But it was supposed to be the second one, on the original timeline that they had. And so I think what they did with Val makes a lot of sense. When Val showed up, don't call her Val, but when Val showed up on Falcon and Winter Soldier, basically it's more or less leaked out that, oh, she was going to be a part of Black Widow first. That was going to be the introduction of the character. And then as a result, Marvel's allegedly talking about pulling her scenes from the movie to change how it all happens. And I'll be honest, I totally forgot the whole movie. I totally forgot those things those kind of rumors. I try to forget about them. And I completely forgot. And then I saw her, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. I'm so glad they left it in, but all they do is call her Valentina. They don't give you anything more than that. You got you got less from her in this than you did in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think people would have been even more confused. I think a lot of comic book fans would have been confused on who exactly she was. I feel like by doing that, plus people have been questioning, probably too early for these questions, but regardless, are the shows going to matter towards the movies? One, I think we're going to find out next week on Loki that that's a yes. And
Yep.
two, this is another sign that, yeah, like this stuff matters. Like this isn't like it used to be where we talk about being connected, but we're really not. This is like full on. We
Agents
are
of S.H.I.E.L.D..
connected. We are
Or
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season
Runaways.
3 and on for the record. I mean, 1 and 2 I'll give them, but regardless, this is a true definitive connection. We've got Val showing up on Disney Plus. We have Val showing up in the movies. I think it's a great credit scene to start the next phase off. Look at how it all started with the very first credit scene with Sam Jackson basically showing up and talking about the Avengers Initiative. No, she didn't talk about the Thunderbolts, but she's clearly putting together a team. That I feel is undeniable when we see her with Yelena here, and we already know she's recruited John Walker. And while no, we don't know why she wants to go after Clint, I do think it's a kill ordered only because, or at least that's part of it, because she says this is the person responsible for the death of your sister. You don't phrase it that way if you're not trying to send him after him. But regardless, I think it's a great start. Now, do I want every single movie to have a credit scene with her showing up and recruiting someone? No. But the first couple, one in Disney Plus, one theatrically, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Now, two things. One, yes, this movie was supposed to come out before Falcon Winter Soldier, but that being said, in the timeline of the MCU, did she already recruit John Walker?
Well, we don't know the answer to that because we don't know the timeline that this story that the credit scene takes place in. We know it's post-Endgame. That's all we got. So we don't know, has the John Walker recruitment already happened?
Mm-hmm.
And two, I kind of feel like after almost 2 years of no MCU movies, we had a whole crapload of MCU movies this year. I kind of wish we got at least one more after credit scene, something, because for what we got, I'm like, okay, this is nice and all, but I kind of saw this coming from Falcon and Winter Soldier when they said that she was in this movie, so I just assumed that she would be recruiting either Elena or Taskmaster to join her squad. So I kind of wish we got one more thing than that.
And I think that, for us, we're not general audience. Katie's probably the most general audience person in the the panel tonight at that point.
I didn't even say anything on Taskmaster because I have no idea who she is in comics.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Well, she's a guy for one thing.
Yeah.
Masters.
Okay.
Yep. But I heard bloggers and other podcasts, namely BD, at that point saying, "Oh my God, the end credits is some people have made it bigger than it was. It was, and I wasn't listening to any of that just because I was not expecting the Black Widow end credit scene to really blow open the doors on Phase 4. Does it set things up for Phase 4? Better believe it. Was it the most amazing thing in the world? No, it wasn't. It did what it needed to do for the film and where it's leading to. But, I know some people complain about, Val blowing her nose at a very touching scene. That kind of took people out of it. I was like, but
that was the point.
Wow.
That's your character. I mean, that's just the way it is. So again, say what you want. Kevin Feige, he'll do tip of the hats to us comic book people. They're making movies for general audience, and we'll come to see in this week how much so far that it's making the money right now. But it does it basically sets up Hawkeye, where we know Florence Pugh is going to be in. So,
which kind of stinks because had this movie come out when it was originally intended to, we would not have known that prior to the movie. And again, I tried to kind of tune that stuff out, but that one I knew. I mean, I was like, well, she's definitely surviving. I was surprised that both the parents lived. I thought for sure one of them was gone.
I thought Taskmaster was going to kill that Guardian.
Yes, so did I. But I mean, you kind of wanted to see it just to see Taskmaster really showing the badassery that was capable there. But regardless, I mean, I like the credit scene, and I guess I don't have that same feeling of we needed some good credit scenes, because We just had a couple, like 3 in WandaVision, and we had a couple in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and we've already had one in Loki.
Next week.
And presumably we're getting one next week. I'm like, I think they're doing that already.
So, all right, we're getting to the end. That's getting sun's getting a little low there, bud. Sun's getting a little low.
A little low. It's been down for like 2 hours now for me.
Kind of closing up before we get to rankings. At that point, we're pretty confident. Right now we're not going to probably see Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow for a while, if at all, again. But you never know. But what do we see for some of the future of some of these characters we got met for the first time? Who do you see coming back outside of Yelena? Let's put Yelena off to the side. We know we're seeing her again at that point. Do we see any of these characters again?
I would love to see
Taskmaster.
Red Guardian. Yeah, Taskmaster. I would love to see come back. I would love to see Red Guardian come back.
Mhm.
Not saying I don't know where they would come back at. If Thunderbolts is not on the table, if Dark Avengers is not on the table at this moment, I don't know where they would come back as like a cameo. But I would love to see them come back. Melina, maybe, like her role in this thing, other than just being the scientist and having the whole reason for the Red Room. If her character can expand, yes, but really just Taskmaster and Red Guardian. Those are the 2 I want to come back.
I think that with the limited contracts now, we've kind of talked about how some of them are going to be large, some of them are going to be 1 or 2, whatever. I think with the limited contracts, I think it leaves these characters to be treated more like they are in comics. If there is a lot of praise from fans, then Kevin Feige can for sure find a way to be like, hey, we need to bring this character back. And if that's the case, I think Red Guardian is for sure. I do think that he is going to be one of a fan favorite for this film.
I'm going to get my Red Guardian cosplay up and going right now.
But
Love
I got the beard already.
As far as anybody else, maybe Taskmaster. But I will not say if it will be I forgot her name already.
Melina?
No, Taskmaster.
Antonia.
And yeah, I don't think it'll be her.
Same.
Or I can't necessarily say that it will not be her, but we will see Taskmaster in the future as well.
Gotcha. Anyone else? Anything new for the order before we go to rankings?
I think we're going to see people again. Kate Shortland has said that like they like these characters. They want to tell more stories with these characters. So if they if we're all right and these characters do hit with the general public, yeah, we'll probably see them again. Maybe in another prequel. I don't know. I would like to see where they are at in the present day. And I would love to see Red Guardian meet up with Sam Wilson, Captain America, so he can finally, fulfill his dream.
that would be good. And Kevin Feige says, again, with the idea of prequels, anything's on the table.
That's right.
So
For me, I think one thing I want to see is I still want to see the widows try and recover who they are and try and figure out what they mean to society as a whole. Especially like going into a little bit of like the trafficking details like laid out in this, where the Dreykov's literally just like, I'm using the one resource the world has too much of, women. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Yeah. But for me, like, I just think, especially with how the world is kind of shown in Falcon and Winter Soldier, kind of the widows have had time at that point, the ones who are left, to try and find out who they are and can maybe help the world figure out where they're meant to be too, with the blip coming back and everything. So I think that's a really good opportunity to bring some of those characters back in, maybe expand on like a new Red Room or something. Probably not Red, but like just kind of showing, hey, there's more to these girls than kind of meets the eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's the opportunity for Alexei, Melina, and Yelena to come in. So
that's cool. I like the use of Transformers in there, Katie, whether you realized it or not. More than meets the eye. I knew that was going to get the reaction at that point.
that reaction made it worth it. It's all good.
It was. It's all good. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to see. I knew what was going to happen, but I had to do it. You set me up. All right. So just going to go around at that point. Your rating out of 10, and if you know where this exactly stands in your MCU rating, otherwise kind of a roundabout beginning, middle, or end of your rankings at that point. So out of 10, and where does this stand in your MCU? Clay, go for it.
How did I know you were going to choose me first?
I mean, you're right there next to me. So
I know.
Weird.
And it would have been Brent at that point.
I will be completely honest. I have no idea where this lands in my ranking. I literally, while we were doing this review, downloaded Letterboxd for the very first time, and I'm trying to do it like right now before you picked
That
me.
was a mistake.
Yeah, I know.
You can always come back
but-
if you can do it that quickly.
Well, I will say this because I even said this when I finished watching it for the very first time. I don't know if it's at the bottom of my favorites or if it's at the top of the okay or not great films. It is kind of it's way better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It is way better than Thor Ragnarok. But it's nowhere near Iron Man, Captain America, the First Avenger, or Avengers. So I honestly don't know where I would put this. I will say, give me The Weeknd, because I will probably see it another 2 or 3 more times to really see where it fits.
Cool. Well,
So Clay, you missed it because I was on mute, but I said this film's way better than Captain Marvel. So
All right.
Yeah.
Fair.
Well, Captain Marvel isn't in my top 5, so which I don't believe this will hit my top 5, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I could almost argue that it is better than Captain Marvel.
Okay. How about out of 10? Where do you rank this just as MCU movie at that point out of 10?
Out of 10, I would rank this a solid 7.5. If this was a comic that I was reading, there's a lot of stuff that I enjoyed. There's some stuff that is gimmicky, in my opinion, that is like, okay. Some of the visuals, just like art, I can really appreciate. And comedy. It was very tasteful for the stuff that was happening with like Alexi. After a while, I kind of understood Elena's comedy, so I was like, okay, I can see why people like it. So a solid 7.5 for me.
Okay. Katie.
So I actually already had Letterboxd, and I had a full Marvel ranking on here from when I rewatched it for Endgame. Did not rewatch all the movies for this one, but I have Black Widow ranked at 8 right now.
I would love to see your ranking, by the way. If you could just send me some screenshots, I would love to see it.
I got you. I'll drop the link in the chat. But for me, I think I've got it at a 3.5 because Letterboxd does out of 5. Because it's still very flawed to me, and really I think it could have told a better story if a few things had been changed, and it just really bugs me because Natasha dying in Endgame really bugged me, and I'm sorry, but that's never gonna change. So for me it's a 3.5, but I really, like I said before, I really enjoyed some of the directorial moments. Loved Yelena's character. I'm excited to see her progress in the MCU. And like just a lot of great moments that I thought really worked. The biggest thing is, again, just different storytelling. I think it could have really helped.
Tony.
Out of 10. All day at work, I was trying to figure out, instead of doing my job, I was like, man, what would I rank this? And I was choosing between the 7.5, 7.75. But after talking about this, I think I'm going with with an 8. Definitely one that I'm gonna rewatch. Yes, it has some of its flaws, but some stuff really definitely got me a lot more than others. But as it being in my list of MCU rankings, unfortunately, I actually have a letterbox. I don't know how it works. I'm too lazy to figure it out. So I want to say it's either between number 9 through number 12 on my slot. If I actually went through all the movies, it'll be somewhere between those 4.
All right, Joe.
I gave this one a 7. I did enjoy it, but my other issue is that, like I said earlier, I've only watched it the one time. The score will change on second viewing, because the first viewing for me is always I'm enjoying the movie.
Mm-hmm.
This one I was trying to give a critical eye because I knew I wasn't going to be able to watch it again before this review, but normally the viewings after my first initial viewing, that's when I'm starting to dissect everything. So I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. I know I have movies in my MCU that are better, and I know I have some that are going to be lower. My issue is I should have been ranking them during this most current rewatch, but I didn't. That's on me. I'll get there. Maybe on my next rewatch in like 3 years.
Just do it now. It's always a moment in time anyway. Just do it now.
Because I don't remember some of them. So,
That's fair.
Because I started my rewatch at like the beginning of June, and I made it all the way to Black Panther last week. So that's why I told you when I was talking about Endgame breaking its own time traveling rules, I'm like, give me a month, I'll get there eventually. Give me like another month, I'll get there. Yeah, technically I still have like 2 weeks, but that's not the point. Yeah, so I give it sits somewhere in the middle for me on my MCU. I don't know exactly where. Give me some time, and I'll drop it at some point in time somewhere in the future. I did enjoy the movie. I do want to say that it's an enjoyable movie. I will see it again in theaters one more time, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad I did not pay for it on the Disney Premiere access. That's just me, though. Like, I'll when it comes on to Disney Plus in October, I'll watch it like crazy. But until then, I'll go see it one more time in theaters, and that's about it for me.
Cool. Brent.
So overall, I was really happy with this movie. I liked it quite a bit. There were some negatives about it. And I felt good going into this movie when I found out that Jack Schaefer was has a story credit on it, because Jack Schaefer, if you don't know who that is, she's the head writer on WandaVision. And so even though this would have happened first, it's still, that gave me confidence for this going into it. And I would say overall the story, for me, it worked. I'm going to probably land on a 7. I'm going to go with, I think. Ranking wise, I did get this on Premiere Access. I haven't watched it on there yet, but I will probably watch it again tomorrow. I have my other review I'll be doing for it on Fans next week. After that, after listening to some other stuff, I don't believe it's like you must ignore everybody before. It's like, no, I want to hear what other people have to say about it to catch things I missed, both positive and negative. Oh, you're right. That really kind of did stink, looking at that perspective. Oh, that's really cool. I didn't think of it that way. Like, I like having those influences. But as of right now, including the Disney Plus shows, because they are on my letterbox, I have it number 15, which, just to be clear, number 26, because that Loki doesn't count yet because it's not finished, is a movie that I really, really like and would be happy to watch anytime. So it's got to fall somewhere. It's not anything bad about Black Widow so much as just the other movies above it I enjoy more.
All right. So I would say that I'm with a number of y'all. I'm putting this at a 7.5 out of 10. Did enjoy it. I really love a lot of the characters. I think the character building is what this movie did well. Besides, the little things, the Taskmaster, all the stuff, it takes it down a few notches, a few kind of headcanon moments, fine. It's definitely, I did, as I said, pay for this. I do not regret. This is actually my first movie on Disney Plus that I've done Premiere Access with, and it's more because I've got kids. my wife and I going out, we don't have necessarily paying $70. So she basically said, no, we're buying on Premier Access because we're not going to theater and paying $70. So this includes the babysitter, not because we're paying $70 for a movie. So it's a hell of a movie price. So
Hey, you got to get that candy, you know?
we don't
Yeah,
buy
I would say it's about $100 for me.
Yeah.
I got myself, my girlfriend, and our kids.
Yeah.
So with the tickets, and I got a Regal pass, so I get mine for definitely a cheaper price. But with tickets, and then popcorn, candy, and all that stuff, and drinks, like it. At the end of the day, it's close to $100 for us.
Yeah.
So
So definitely taking advantage of that, but I enjoyed it. I'll definitely see this again. I'm probably this is gonna kick me in my butt to finally start my rewatch. So where my ranking of this right now, ballparking it's probably right in the middle of my rankings at that point. So I'm gonna probably start mine next week and kind of see where this goes, if it goes up or down, but I don't foresee it dropping too much. It may be bottom middle, maybe by the end of it, but right in the middle is kind of where it is right now for me. So, but all right. Thank you all for joining in for our very first Marvel Alliance review. We've for a movie review, we've got
Several
Shang-Chi.
more.
Yep, several more coming. Our next one will be Shang-Chi. More than likely that night we'll try to see exactly how that works. But yeah, it comes up September 3rd. So I guess our aiming is for that. So may have some of y'all back at that point. We'll maybe have some new panelists. I know, we'll maybe have some few joining us, but I really do want to thank everyone for taking your time on a Friday night. I know we're still in pandemic. We still got other things, but I know Katie also sacrificed sleep. I know Joe has sacrificed sleep. Clay has just sacrificed a lot.
Really,
Clay doesn't
sleep.
Clay's got 6 podcasts. He only sleeps for an hour on Tuesday. He's a full-time student at that point. He works at that point. Clay literally is taskmaster, but he's got his whole wits about him
right now.
For me, I'm a little disappointed that Shang-Chi is not going to be Premier Access because right now in my city, the Delta variant is kind of getting up for numbers of COVID. So
yeah,
I was going to see Black Widow in theaters. But when I saw the numbers increase, I was like, I am fully vaccinated, but I wanted to be safe. And not test the waters.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If the Delta variant had ramped up here, I would have gone Premier Access, but
yeah,
we're good at the moment, so I took advantage of it while I could.
Yeah. So, but I do appreciate y'all taking that time today. We'll start with you, Clay. Tell people how they can follow you, plug your shows.
All right. So I'm not going to waste the rest of this podcast naming all of them, but I will tell you that you can follow me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter. And in my bio, there's a link tree with all of my shows there.
Katie.
So you can find me on Twitter. It's at Slice of Katie. I do run 2 shows on the Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network. One is Slice of Film, where you can find all of the non-IP movies that are already covered on the Geek Ultimate Alliance. You can find those reviews on there. Joe and I just did one for Fast 9. That was really good.
Cars go fast.
Cars go fast.
Ka-chow.
And then my other that is on excuse me. That show is on Twitter. It's at Slice of Film 1. My other show is Star Wars Alliance, which I co-host with Nathan. And that is on Twitter. It's at Star Wars Alliance without the A in the war. It's very important. We just did a Rising Storm review, Clay, and I did that with Ryan from Minot Manor. So that episode is live. And then we will also be live this coming Sunday to talk about the recent news in a galaxy far, far away and the Bad Batch, which is really pissing me off. So
yeah, you have thoughts and more hot takes. So all right, Tony.
So really quick, I just did my my letterbox.
Oh,
14 is where Black Widow is. So just wanted to put that out there.
Again, Taskmaster. He will get it done. Tony.
You can find me at Twitter at Walker93, as well as part of Ranger Alliance. And also on Instagram at comic_discuss, where last week I reviewed about Spider-Man 29, 2015 run, issue 6 through 9. I think tomorrow so I'll do the Shadowland Marvel event.
Good luck to you. I'm a Daredevil fan, and I say good luck to you.
Understandable. A little bit let down.
Joe.
You can find me on Twitter at _actually_. Clay always shakes his head. I love it. You can also find my show, Comic Book Rundown, on Twitter at Comic Rundown, on Instagram at Comic Book Rundown. Then you also find me as a co-host for Ranger Alliance. And yeah, maybe some other things in the works in the future, but we'll see.
We'll see.
I'm scheming.
Brent, tell people how they can follow you.
Sure. Brentak Prem on Twitter. The other show I'm a part of, not part of this network, is Fans Without Borders. Our next episode, which will be next weekend, is going to be to review Black Widow. So we'll see how that goes. It should be an interesting one as well. But yeah, Twitter is the best place. And as I said at the top, my DMs are open because I'm crazy like that. So feel free. I'm reach out. It's totally fine.
Exactly. So again, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you all for doing that. And again, reminding from the top of the show, a lot's happened. We did a lot of reviews. Again, remember we start the contest. So again, 2 omnibuses from organicpricebooks.com, our official sponsor. Black Widow Strikes, the omnibus, and then Star Wars Legends, the Old Republic omnibus. And for international, someone wins it internationally, $100 to OPB. All you need to do, rate and review the solo Marvel Alliance podcast feed, whatever your podcast choice may be. When it populates, take a screenshot of it, DM myself, Brent, the show account, email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You do not need to do all 4. Just do 1. We'll get it. We'll run it for about a week, and then we will do some number generator at that point and choose our 2 winners. So again, thank you to JP at organicpricebooks.com, our official sponsor. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balgav, and my other show on this network is World's Finest True Believers, and you can follow that on Twitter at Finest Believers. And you can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GWayPod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, questions. Fact or Fictions are coming back next week. We've got our comic book club. We're announcing our 4 new arcs that fans are going to vote on. The theme is multiverse. So we will be talking about which 4 arcs and limited series you will get to choose from to choose our next comic book club. And rate and review again, that's part of the contest. So do that. And thank you all again, panel, for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Thank you all for joining us who were joining us live in the chat, watching us later, listening to us Saturday morning or whenever you listen to us after you see Black Widow. We hope you enjoyed our first one. As we said, plenty more movies coming down the road. As Brent tweeted on our hashtag Make Mine Marvel. Stay safe out there, everyone. As Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers.